Imagine a world where mountains breathe fire and forests stretch further than any eye can see. A world not of man, but of titans, where every rustle in the ancient ferns could be the whisper of death, and the very ground beneath your feet could tremble with the approach of unimaginable power. For eons, a fragile balance held, but the whispers are now roars, and the trembling an earthquake. Across a fog-shrouded valley, two colossal forces are poised, the unyielding might of horn and hide against the savage hunger of tooth and claw. This isn't just a battle for survival. It's a primal war that will reshape the very face of the ancient earth. Who will reign supreme? Watch until the end to discover the truth. The prehistoric valley, a vibrant tapestry woven from colossal ferns and ancient towering trees, pulsed with life beneath a benevolent sun. A colossal brontosaurus, its gray-green skin a mosaic of shadows and light, moved with stately grace through the undergrowth. Its impossibly long neck stretched towards the highest canopy, plucking succulent leaves with the unhurried precision of a seasoned gardener. Its tail, a slow-moving pendulum, cleared a path through the dense flora without conscious effort. This was the rhythm of the old world, a cycle of gentle giants and burgeoning flora, seemingly unaware of the delicate tightrope it walked. Distant squawks and chirps, like a symphony of forgotten ages, drifted on the warm breeze. In a sun-dappled clearing, the first subtle tremor of discord began. Two Compsognathus, barely larger than chickens, but bristling with miniature ferocity, chirped aggressively over a fallen, glistening fruit. Their bright green scales shimmered as they darted, tails twitching, each proclaiming ownership with high-pitched snarls that belied their size. It was a squabble, no more, but a tiny crack in the valley's placid facade, a whisper of the territorial instinct that governed all life here. As the dappled light softened into the amber hues of late afternoon, a more ominous shift occurred. A group of agile velociraptors, their mottled brown-green scales blending seamlessly with the shadowed jungle floor, moved with a fluid, predatory grace. They were low to the ground, keen intelligence glinting in their amber eyes, sniffing the air with quick, almost imperceptible movements. Their soft, rustling footsteps were barely audible over the whispering wind through giant leaves. They communicated in low, guttural growls and sniffs, a silent conversation of intent. They were scouting, their presence a palpable tightening of the air, a predatory current flowing through the ecosystem. Nearby, a small herd of triceratops grazed near a slow-moving riverbank, the late afternoon sun painting their earthy brown hides in golden light. One adult, its massive frill scarred from ancient skirmishes, and two of its three bone-white horns jaggedly broken, lifted its head. Its determined, intelligent eyes scanned the horizon, a low, nervous snort escaping its nostrils. It sensed the change, the subtle shift in the wind, the deepening shadows that heralded more than just dusk. Its gentle chewing ceased, a silent sentinel against an unseen, yet deeply felt, threat. The territorial boundary was about to be tested. Across a desolate, rocky plain that bordered the lush valley, a lone alpha predator emerged. He was a Tyrannosaurus Rex, colossal and powerful, his dark green scales crisscrossed with the white lines of countless battles. His piercing yellow eyes, like molten gold, surveyed the expanse. His immense jaws were slightly ajar, a low, guttural rumble emanating from deep within his chest, a sound that shook the very ground. This was a king surveying his intended kingdom. His deliberate, thudding footsteps, a pronouncement of his undeniable presence. The air grew heavy, thick with the weight of impending dominion. From high above, a pteranodon, leathery dark wings catching the crisp, clear air, circled with effortless majesty. Its distinctive head crest cut a clean line against the vast blue sky. Below, the sprawling prehistoric forest looked like a verdant carpet, and the tiny specks of movement were oblivious to the aerial observer. It was a silent witness to a world on the brink, a vast tapestry of life and death unfolding beneath its watchful gaze. The first direct confrontation arrived not as a clash of giants, but as a skirmish in a narrow, rocky gorge. A group of velociraptors, swift and cunning, found themselves ambushed by two smaller, yet equally aggressive Dilophosaurus. Their frills flared, vivid and threatening, their movements quick and jerky. Shadows lengthened as dusk approached, painting the scene in stark contrasts of light and gloom. Furious growls and hisses echoed off the canyon walls. The snap of jaws and the scrape of claws on rock, a brutal symphony. This was no longer just a hunt. It was a prelude, raising the stakes for the entire valley. The brutality deepened. In a desolate, muddy clearing, a lone, distraught female triceratops sniffed at the scattered remnants of what had once been a nest. Broken, giant eggshells lay amidst the tiny skeletal remains of hatchlings. Her deep brown hide, usually a shield of defiance, seemed to sag with grief. A mournful bellow, raw and heart-wrenching, tore from her throat, a profound sound of loss under the oppressive gray sky. The destroyed nest was a stark prophecy, foreshadowing the savage nature of the war to come. This was a personal tragedy that would fuel a collective rage. A rallying cry was needed, and it came from an unexpected source. A powerful Stegosaurus, olive-green skin, adorned with distinctive double rows of large bony plates along its back, stood atop a small rise. Its thagomizer, a spiked tail of formidable power, swished almost imperceptibly. It bellowed, a deep, resonant roar that carried across the valley, summoning a gathering herd of various herbivores, hadrosaurs, ankylosaurs, and more triceratops. Turned towards the sound, their movements hesitant, then resolute. The sun began to set, casting long, dramatic shadows and painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. This was the birth of defiance, a united front against the encroaching darkness. On a charred volcanic ridge, overlooking a vast plain filled with hundreds of various predatory dinosaurs, stood the alpha predator. Smoke billowed from distant vents, casting an eerie reddish glow over the assembled horde of tyrannosaurids, velociraptors, allosaurus, and countless other hunters. The alpha T-Rex, immense and unyielding, let out a low, rumbling growl that was less a sound and more a vibration of primal power. His piercing yellow eyes, glowing like embers in the dramatic, high-contrast light, surveyed his growing army. It was a chilling display of absolute power, a terrifying vision of an ancient war machine ready to be unleashed. The tension became almost unbearable when two opposing scouting parties met. A small group of agile velociraptors faced off against two wary stegosaurus. They were separated by a shallow, murky stream and a dense, humid forest, the air thick with anticipation. The lighting, filtered through the thick canopy, created patches of light and shadow, giving the scene a muted, earthy palette. Low growls and snarls from the velociraptors were met with the rhythmic swish of the stegosaurus tail, a warning rattle of their thagomisers. It was a fragile standoff, a moment suspended, a precursor to the larger, bloodier conflict. In a desperate, powerful migration, a colossal brontosaurus herd began to move. Gray-green skin rippling, they lumbered across a vast open grassland, their sheer size creating deep imprints in the earth. Dust billowed around their thunderous footsteps, a living cloud against the high sun. Their low, rumbling calls echoed across the plains, a mournful sound of giants seeking safety, or perhaps, unknowingly, preparing for battle. The land shook with their passage, an ancient tremor heralding an even greater disturbance. An ancient, foreboding landmark loomed on the horizon, a colossal rock formation, weathered by ions, shaped uncannily like a monstrous skull. It stood silhouetted against a stormy, bruised purple sky. Lightning flashed intermittently, briefly illuminating its jagged, terrifying edges. The ground around it was desolate and barren, a fitting stage for the coming apocalypse. This wasn't just a rock. It was a symbol, the fabled meeting point for the approaching war. Now, the predators began to move in unison. A large pack of agile velociraptors moved swiftly and silently through tall, dry savanna grass. They maintained a terrifying formation, their eyes fixed on a distant target. The setting sun cast long golden shadows, painting the scene in warm, earthy tone. Quick, whispered chirps and snarls passed between them. A coordinated hunt, turning into a war formation, a chilling display of their collective, cunning intelligence. In the midst of this escalating dread, a stark image of vulnerability emerged. A juvenile triceratops, smaller but with the earthy brown hide, frill and horns of its elders, stood trembling in a shadowy part of the jungle. Lost and alone, its eyes were wide with fear, reflecting the dense foliage surrounding it. Its whimpering cries were muffled by the ominous, heavy silence, broken only by unsettling jungle creaks. The war had not yet begun in earnest, but its cruelty was already claiming victims. The alpha predator, its colossal form a silhouette against a towering cliff, threw its head back and unleashed a thunderous roar. It was a primal challenge, a defiance echoing across the vast primeval forest below, sending birds scattering in terrified unison. The sky, a dramatic mix of dark clouds and streaks of sunlight, highlighted its power and presence. This was not just a roar. It was a declaration of war, an invitation to absolute destruction. The herbivores, hearing the challenge, responded with an act of desperate unity. Hundreds of various dinosaurs, including countless triceratops and stegosaurus, huddled together in a tight, formidable circle on a windswept plateau. Their young were protected in the center, a living fortress of horns and plates. Their grunts and the clack of horns against each other formed a low, constant rumble, a powerful, unwavering resolve against the impending onslaught. As if in response, the world itself began to turn hostile. A powerful, wide river with rapids and jagged rocks surged through a deep canyon. A few desperate, smaller dinosaurs attempted to cross, battling the relentless current. A lone pteranodon flew low over the churning water, its shriek swallowed by the roaring rapids and panicked squeals from below. The sky was dark and stormy, the elements mirroring the growing chaos. Nature itself had become a dangerous obstacle, isolating and testing the dinosaurs before the true war began. The first wave of smaller predators launched their coordinated assault. A large pack of agile velociraptors burst from the tree line and charged across an open plain. Their target, the exposed flank of the herbivore formation. They moved with incredible speed, dust kicking up in golden clouds under the morning sun. Rapid pounding footsteps, excited chirps and snarls, the rustle of grass, the rising intensity of the impending clash filled the air. This was the opening salvo, the first brushstroke of a canvas destined to be painted in blood. The impact was brutal. The herbivore defensive formation, a wall of horns and plates, braced itself. The charging velociraptors crashed against the living fortress. Loud crashes, snarls, roars, the thud of bodies, the clack of horns. A cacophony of immediate combat erupted. For a moment, it seemed the defenses would break, but the herbivores held, a testament to their desperate resolve. From a rocky outcrop, the alpha predator watched. Its massive form was partially silhouetted against a smoky sky, its gaze intense, unblinking. As it observed the skirmish below, the battlefield was a chaotic blur in the background, a proving ground for its smaller, swifter hunters. Distant sounds of battle, muffled roars and growls, reached its ears, but its heavy breathing was the only sound it made. It was calculating, an ancient general biding its time, plotting the next move in a war that had only just begun. The valley held its breath, poised on the edge of unimaginable carnage. Imagine a world where mountains breathe fire and forests stretch further than any eye can see. A world not of man, but of titans, where every rustle in the ancient ferns could be the whisper of death, and the very ground beneath your feet could tremble with the approach of unimaginable power. For eons, a fragile balance held, but the whispers are now roars, and the trembling, an earthquake. Across a fog-shrouded valley, two colossal forces are poised. The unyielding might of horn and hide against the savage hunger of tooth and claw. This isn't just a battle for survival. It's a primal war that will reshape the very face of the ancient earth. Who will reign supreme? Watch until the end to discover the truth. The valley awoke with a gasp of primal dread. A thick, gray fog, heavy with the scent of damp earth and distant sulfur, clung to the ancient ferns and gargantuan trees, obscuring all but the most immediate horrors. From the eastern mists, a shadow emerged, then another, then hundreds, coalescing into a living tide of scales and teeth. The Tyrannosaurids, a menacing horde of predators, moved with a terrible, silent purpose. At their vanguard, a titan, the Alpha T-Rex. He was a living legend, his dark green scales a map of ancient battles, each scar a testament to his ferocity. His yellow eyes, piercing through the gloom, radiated a cold, calculating hunger that promised only annihilation. A deep, guttural rumble resonated in his chest, a sound that stirred the very bedrock. Across the chasm of fog, a defiant answer. From the western shadows, a phalanx of triceratops stood their ground, their broad frills and massive horns forming an impenetrable wall. Their leader, the elder Triceratops, was a behemoth of deep brown hide, marked by horns broken in countless past struggles. His eyes, intelligent and determined, held the collective wisdom of his kind, a weary but unyielding resolve. The sky above them was a bruised purple, dark and stormy, mirroring the brewing tempest below. Distant thunder rumbled, an ominous drumbeat to the unfolding epic. Low, ominous brass swelled through the valley, the music of an ancient world poised on the precipice. Then, with a roar that tore through the fog and shook the very air, the Alpha T-Rex surged forward. Earth-shattering thuds echoed as his colossal feet struck the muddy ground, each impact a hammer blow to the valley's fragile peace. A stampede of theropods, a blur of predatory fury, followed in his wake, dust billowing around them like a primal shroud. The air filled with the scent of ozone and raw power. The herbivores braced, their rumbling bellows a desperate challenge to the charging horde. The elder Triceratops lowered his massive head, his intelligent eyes burning with fierce determination. A smaller raptor, a lean blue-gray velociraptor, dared to flank him, a streak of predatory intelligence in its keen eyes. But the elder was no stranger to such cunning. With a swift, brutal thrust, his broken horn found its mark, impaling the raptor with a wet, tearing sound that was swallowed by the escalating din. Blood splattered against the ancient, muddy ground, the first grim payment in a war centuries in the making. The Alpha T-Rex, already wading through the initial chaos, stood atop a pile of defeated smaller dinosaurs, his jaws streaked with fresh blood. He let out another victorious, earth-shaking roar, a declaration of dominance that momentarily silenced the nearby skirmishes. Ash and smoke, no longer just from the fog, began to billow from distant primordial volcanoes, creating an eerie reddish glow that painted the colossal predator in stark, dramatic light. The war had truly begun. Even the skies above seemed to join the fray. Pteranodons, once serene observers, now dove from the turbulent heavens, their screeches adding a piercing note to the cacophony below. They snatched at smaller, panicked creatures or pecked at the eyes of larger, embattled ones, adding an aerial dimension to the brutal conflict. The very earth itself, perhaps weary of the ceaseless carnage, began to shift. A colossal volcano, its jagged peak having silent looted on the horizon, suddenly erupted with a deafening roar. Ash, fire, and molten rock spewed high into the smoky sky, turning the bruised purple to a fiery, apocalyptic red and black. A river of glowing lava began its slow, inexorable descent, casting an orange-red glow on the already chaotic battlefield. Dinosaurs, predator and herbivore alike, paused, bewildered, then panicked anew, caught between two hells. Agile velociraptors, with mottled brown-green scales, now deftly navigated treacherous rocky outcrops and streams of cooling lava. They used the uneven, hazardous terrain to ambush larger, slower triceratops who struggled on the shifting ground, their heavy footsteps sinking into the soft ash. A brontosaurus herd, immense and powerful, attempted to use its sheer bulk to clear a path through fallen trees and volcanic rocks. Their deep grunts of effort, the crunching and snapping of trees, spoke of the arduous, desperate struggle. The Alpha T-Rex, ever the opportunist, emerged from a cloud of volcanic ash, his piercing yellow eyes fixed on a specific wounded triceratops. Separated from its herd in the confusion, the herbivore let out pained whimpers as the colossal predator advanced, undeterred by the heat or the choking air. Its immense jaws were slightly ajar, a chilling promise. The air shimmered with the heat, thick with the scent of sulfur and terror. A small group of battered stegosaurus, finding temporary respite, huddled inside a damp, shadowy cave. Outside, the sounds of battle and volcanic fury were muffled, offering a fleeting, fragile peace. But the Alpha T-Rex, driven by an almost supernatural resolve, continued its relentless pursuit across the smoldering ash. Its heavy footsteps squelched on the hot embers, each step a declaration of unwavering purpose, A cunning trap was laid by a pack of velociraptors using meticulously arranged volcanic rocks to create a narrow funnel leading to a steep drop. They concealed themselves in dense, ash-covered foliage, their amber eyes gleaming with anticipation. A small herd of unsuspecting triceratops, moving cautiously through the ash, fell into the ambush. Panic erupted, a symphony of snorts, frantic thudding footsteps, and piercing snarl. In another corner of this desolate landscape, a formidable stegosaurus with olive-green skin and distinctive double rows of bony plates stood protectively over its small, terrified offspring. It faced a relentless pack of velociraptors, snarling and circling, a raw act of parental sacrifice playing out against overwhelming odds. The air crackled with tension, the desperation palpable. Then, at the heart of the maelstrom, came the clash of titans. The Alpha T-Rex, having completed its preliminary hunts, let out a guttural cry of triumph, its jaws coated in mud and blood, as it surveyed the devastated landscape. But the elder Triceratops, his resolve unbroken, met Victor's gaze. The air seemed to thicken, the swirling chaos of the battlefield momentarily fading as the two colossal leaders charged. The Alpha T-Rex, a massive engine of destruction, its dark